So I am actually starting to believe that the women's world record in the 400-meter dash may be possible by someone from the current generation of 400-meter sprinters in the world right now. Now, we have athletes like Marileidy Paulino, we have Salwa Eid Naser, who have kind of pushed the bounds of what might be possible in the realm of the 400, with Naser having run 48.14, as well as Paulino having run 48.17. Both of those being the third and the fourth fastest times all time in the history of the event, only behind the world record of 47.60 seconds set by Marileidy Paulino all the way back in 1985, and also behind Marileidy who ran 47.99 all the way back in 1983. Those two are the only performances ever to break the sub 48-second barrier, and then behind them you have Naser and Paulino. Both Paulino and Naser are still running some of their best performances all time at this current moment. Paulino with her 48.17 coming at the Olympic Games last year. Naser with her 48.14 coming in 2019, but in 2025, we've already seen her run 48.6 seconds this year. So this is really showing that they are in great form. They are very capable of going a little bit faster, and maybe that world record is not so far out of reach. Now, in recent years, we've seen the conversation about the world record come about more specifically around McLaughlin-Levrone, because she had been in the 400-meter hurdles, and in 2022, we saw her run 50.6 seconds at the World Championships in Eugene, and that started to bring about the conversation, what could she do in the open 400? Is she able to get under 48 seconds? And not too long after that, in 2023, Bobby Kersee actually came out and said that Sydney would be focusing in on the 400 to not only attempt to get a gold medal at the World Championships that year, but also to potentially attack the world record of 47.60 seconds. Now, at the end of 2022, I actually put out a video saying that the world record in the women's 400 is a lot harder than we think. And I still believe that to this day. That is by far one of the toughest records in the books. It's one of the oldest world records in the sport of track and field. And we're talking about 47.60 seconds. That means some woman would have to run 47.5 to actually break that record. And we have not seen anyone break 48 seconds since all the way back in 1985. But now we're starting to have a few more athletes actually not only push the bounds of what's possible, but also kind of potentially talk more openly about, wanting to attack sub 48, wanting to potentially attack that world record of 47.6. First off, at the Grand Slam track meet in Miami, we saw Marileidy Paulino as well as Salwa Eid Naser literally go toe-to-toe all the way to the line, with Paulino getting the win over Naser, with Paulino running 49.2, Naser running 49.3. Now, those times weren't significant by any means. There was actually a significant amount of wind in the stadium that potentially might have prevented them from running a little bit faster. But after that race, Paulino had actually indicated that she was targeting and is potentially targeting this year sub 48 seconds. Here's a clip.
No lo llamaría venganza, ya que estamos trabajando con el objetivo de hacer el récord del mundo, está en los 47.99, que es el objetivo real.
Her goal is to get the world record, the 47.99, and she doesn't necessarily see a redemption, but the goal is the goal, and it's the world record.
So she's being very specific about 47.99, which is the #2 performance all time. Like I said, Marileidy all the way back in 1983, that was the first performance to ever break the 48-second barrier before Marileidy Paulino did it in 1985 with her world record. But the fact that Paulino is actually communicating that's her goal right now, and the fact that she's coming off a gold medal at the Olympic Games, the fact that she's coming off of 48.17 probably indicates that she has a lot of confidence in her ability to not only perform when it counts, but also in her training, also in the things that she's doing to make sure that she's ready to potentially go under that barrier. Now, it's still very tough to get under there, even despite her running 48.17 and only being, less than 0.2 of a second off that 48-second barrier. But that motivation, that mindset, that's essentially the first step to get towards breaking that barrier. Now, there's still a large gap before you get to the world record of 47.60. Literally, you have to get another 0.4 plus of a second to actually get under that barrier. But the mindset is one of the most important parts. Now, let's backtrack a little bit to the Kingston Grand Slam track meet, where Salwa Eid Naser, she got the win there over Marileidy Paulino and Gabby Thomas, and Naser ran 48.67 seconds. After that race, she also communicated that anything is possible when it comes to potentially breaking that world record. Here's a clip.
Do you put any limits on yourself? Do you ever imagine maybe running 47 seconds one day?
It's not impossible, right? I keep trusting in God, hopefully. I don't like talking about that because of pressure, but if it happens, it happens.
So once again, not necessarily saying that she's going to break the world record, but indicating that anything is possible, indicating that the potential to actually get under that barrier might be there. And the big thing that I take away from these two in themselves, before even talking about some others, is the fact that both of them are not limiting what might be possible. The fact that they're actually communicating the ability to potentially break that record. That really does at least put things into the conversation, opens the door for more competition, for that mindset, for them to push themselves in training. And even more importantly is that both of them are going head to head, back to back, month over month, year after year. They have been competing very frequently, especially over these past 2 years. And that means that they're going to consistently push each other. I'm sure that Paulino saw what Salwa Eid Naser did in Kingston and wanted to respond here in Miami. And guess what? She also realizes that Salwa Eid Naser is getting back to her old form, getting faster and faster. And Paulino wants to match that energy, match that speed, match those performances. And that's pushing her to be a better version of herself. I think that's going to really motivate each of them as they continue to push for not only that sub 48-second barrier, but also potentially that world record. Again, I'm not saying that the world record is definitely going to be broken, whether this year, next year, but I'm starting to get a lot more open to the possibility that it might go down. Now, again, this is a very, very, very challenging world record. There's a reason that it's now stood for almost a full 40 years at this point, but I'm starting to open up towards that possibility of it actually coming into fruition. Now, like I noted previously though, you do have someone like McLaughlin-Levrone who also could be in that conversation. She hasn't run the 400 as much. 2023, she was focusing in on the 400. She did unfortunately get injured before going to the World Championships, so we'll never know what actually would have come to fruition, but she may be someone who's in the conversation. Also, you have other athletes in this current generation who have really been pushing the pace. I did an entire video about how this generation of athletes are not only extremely young when talking about 400-meter women, but are also extremely fast, are also extremely consistent in the 48-second or 49 low range. You're talking about Nikisha Price, who's run 48.5, Natalia Kaczmarek, 48.9, Rashida Adeleke, 49.0, Gabby Thomas, 49.1, Britton Wilson, 49.1, Kaylin Brown, 49.1, Femke Bol, 49.1, Amber Anning, 49.2. The list goes on and on and on. And yes, not all these women are actually running 48 seconds, only a handful of them, but the consistency across the board is there. When you see someone like Natalia Kaczmarek running 48 seconds, 3 times in a single season, Marileidy Paulino multiple times in a season, Salwa Eid Naser multiple times in a season, McLaughlin-Levrone, the capability to do it multiple times in a season if she was to, really go out there. A lot of these women are in the range of potentially pushing the pace, and going back to the fact that Paulino and Salwa Eid Naser are really pushing themselves to be better at their event. All these other women right behind them are also going to be pushing the pace, putting pressure, and forcing every single one of them to step their game up and be better on the track. So I don't know if the world record is going to go down, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, but I do think that it's getting a lot more possible. The conversation is not too far-fetched, and at minimum, sub 48 seconds might come sooner than we think. And I'd even mention someone like Ashana Marileidy, where if she was to find some good form and jump back into things, she would be in the conversation, having run 48.3 seconds. So let me know what you think about this women's 400 meters. Do you think that the world record of 47.60 seconds set all the way back in 1985 is more possible today than it was in previous years? Do you think that it's actually going to get broken potentially before its 40-year anniversary out in October 2025? Or do you still think we're a long way out from that world record being broken? Again, check out the full video that I did in the fall of 2024, breaking down the current landscape of the women's 400-meter dash, how Marileidy Paulino has kind of been leading this current generation, and how these women are arguably more dominant than we've seen as a collective relative to athletes all the way back in the 1980s. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.